Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Diana Rose and I'm here to talk to you tonight about Love and Marriage Huntsville. This is season 3, episode 2. Let's jump right in it. It was an emotional episode actually. A lot of emotions or unresolved feelings between Marsau and Melody. But let's get into it. The scene opens up with Maurice and Kimmy. Kimmy comes to her husband, Maurice, and says, hey, I need to talk to you about your sister-in-law, Tisha. And she explains to him the conversation that she had with Tisha at the surprise graduation party. And she's letting him know, Tisha is asking for things I don't believe I can give. And Maurice is really interested, like, well, because he knows that this is very sensitive. He loves his brother. Him and his brother are best friends. So the fact that the wives aren't getting along, it's heartbreaking for him, I'm sure. And he probably feels caught in the middle and he really wants them to work it out. But she's letting him know everything that happened. And at the same time, we're getting a scene from Tisha and Marsau. And they are also, Tisha's also telling Marsau what happened between her, and Kimmy. And Marsau's listening. He knows who Tisha is at the end of the day. And he's like, listen, you got to let these things go. And she's saying to him, hey, I'm willing to let it go. I've given her some rules and she either abides by them or she don't. And if she doesn't, I'm done with Kimmy. And then it flashes back to Kimmy, and Kimmy's telling Maurice what's going on. And he's like, listen, I've often heard Tisha refer to you guys as sisters. So if you two are sisters, she can't be asking you to change who you are in order to accommodate her. She's like, it's funny that you say that, because that is a question that I asked her. And she responded, I absolutely am asking you to be someone else when it comes to me. You should be ride or die. I don't care what I say, what I do. Like Trump said, if I shoot a person in the street, I need you to have my back. And they both laugh, like they doubled over laughing. And Maurice was like, she has no idea who you are. And she was like, she doesn't. Because at the end of the day, I change myself for no one. And that is why we love Kimmy, because Kimmy knows exactly who she is, and she's not going to play them silly reindeer games. It flashes back to Tisha, and Tisha and Marsau have moved on to a different conversation. This time they're talking about T-Man. T-Man is Tisha's brother, and he came up to Marsau and said, I heard you had an outside baby, basically. I heard you got a baby on the way. And Tisha's like, oh, Lord. He's listening to the internet, I need to let them know, stop listening to the internet. And Marsau is feeling a way, but he also looks guilty of something. Like he has a weird look on his face, and that is not normal for Marsau. Marsau is a pretty cocky guy. He does not get a scared or, oh, how are you going to answer this question conversation. So Tisha is kind of blowing it off. And then Marsau says out of nowhere, if you had an outside baby, I would stand by you. I wouldn't leave you. And Tisha said, oh, well, that's good to know. Because if you had an outside baby, I'd leave your ass and take you for everything you got. And again, his face just looks like, who is this person? And I'm like, Tisha's second master degree really did give her the guts she needed to tell Marsau, don't let that shit be true. Because if it is, I'm out. The kids are out, and everything that you have will be no more. Period. And I enjoyed watching that, because I've not really seen Tisha have much of a backbone with Marsau at all. So in the next scene, we see Melody and Martell, and it opens with them talking about boundaries. He knocks on the door, she opens it, she lets him stand in the foyer, and he goes, I don't think I've ever been inside your house. She said, you haven't. And then she opened up the door and said, let's talk outside, okay? You don't get a tour of the place. We're just going to talk outside. This is my sanctuary now. I left you. You don't get to bring your energy through up and through my house right here. So they go, they sit on the porch, and she basically lets them know, you know, hey, I need you to be somebody different. Like, we have a custody agreement, and you're not holding up your end of the bargain. And he was like explaining, she's like, hey, blah, 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 I see you on the internet. You'll call me and say, I had the kids for 4 weeks straight. You then call me and say, you can't catch them on week 5 because you're sick or you have something else going on. And I see you on the internet at, you know, different events. So I want that to stop. I want you to take care of your children. And he basically throws it back in her face and said, I see you doing the same thing. You'll tell me something and then I see you in Georgia. And she was like, well, it looks like both of us got some problems here, so let's do something different. And she makes a suggestion to go to counseling, to co-parent with the person. I think she called the counselors Mrs. Pearson's, and or person, Mrs. Person. And she said, maybe we should go to counseling. And Martell agrees, which kind of shocked her because he wasn't willing to go to counseling for their marital issues. He went to counseling for himself for a little bit, but I guess they didn't get to go together for very long before things crashed and burned. But she goes back in the house. He agrees. She goes back in the house to get the kids, and Martell's standing outside, and he knocks on the door, and Melody's mom answers. She lets him in. He hugs her, and it's very, very awkward. Like, she doesn't want to touch him. He feels it. He knows that he's not wanted, that she is not feeling any type of Martell at that moment. And she makes a comment, you know, you've been saying some really nasty things about my daughter. And he basically said it was in retaliation of what she said about me. And he's like, she said, no, Martell, not only did you say these nasty things, it shocked me. It took me by surprise that you would even do that. And he continues to go on, I don't want to talk about this with you. If she wouldn't have done this, then I wouldn't have, you know, done that, basically. And Miss Vanessa gives Martell the hand. And he screams up to the kids, hurry up, kids, your grandmother giving me the hand. And she was like, don't do that. Don't do that. She does not want to bring those kids in. And Martell, who is, again, typical traditional narcissist, looks for anyone to be on his side when he's absolutely wrong and doesn't want anyone to tell him that he's wrong. He'll bring anybody into his mess, even the kids. So he brings the kids come running down, and Miss Vanessa is fit to be tied. And basically that's how that ends. They walk out with the children, or he walks out with the children. Mel walks them out to the porch as well, but Miss Vanessa stays in the house and she's fuming. Okay. So from there, we go on to Maurice. He drives up in his sports car in front of the house, and Monster, his son, is out there playing basketball, and he tells him to come on inside. And he's, you know, last year he was very much an advocate to get Monster to live with them, as he had previously agreed with Kiowa, his ex-wife. He believes that Monster is in that developmental stage where he has to get him into manhood so that he becomes a successful, you know, man. He can provide for a family and do the things he needs to do. And he believes he's the only one who can do it. So he shows up, he sees Monster, he's playing basketball outside the house. They bring him inside, and he sits at the table with Miss Kimmy, stepmom, and they make a phone, well, before that, they asked Monster how he saw himself moving forward with the summer. And he was like, well, I think I'm going to get a job cutting grass. And Kimmy found that hilarious because she was like, the grass at this house hasn't been cut, but you're going to go out and cut other people's grass. And they basically said that Monster is, you know, typical teenager. He just wants what he wants. And so it's clear that they are going to have to teach him some responsibility. So they get on the phone. Maurice calls Kiowa and talks to her a little bit about some things. Never says that they're doing a FaceTime. The FaceTime shows him and Monster, but he never says that Kimmy's in the room. So Kimmy interjects and says, hey, Kiowa, I'm here too. And by the way, we're going to have a graduation party for the cousins, and we would love for Monster to be a part of it. So I'll let Maurice let you know when the time comes up, but I do want you to know that that is in the works, that we're making that plan. And she also makes the comment that Maurice has a hard time, even now, communicating that Kimmy is in the room. And she's told him several times before, when you guys are making decisions about Monster and what is happening here, you should let me be a part of that. You should tell Kiowa and make me a part of it, so that me and Kiowa could be better friends, or at the very minimum, better acquaintances, because I am helping take care of Monster. But Kaya was actually very receptive. She's like, oh, okay, that sounds great. Yes, let me know, and we can see how we can make it happen. And she also says, I would love to talk to you and Maurice, if we can schedule a time to meet later, so that we can talk, because the way things were left off during a previous conversation wasn't great. And I'd just like to move forward, basically, which was a really good start. They do a flashback of Kiowa and Kimmy, and it was horrible. But they are willing to move forward. They've agreed to meet, and Maurice looked actually very happy. So even though Maurice is a deacon at the church and counsels others, he has a hard time dealing with his own. So, but Kimmy doesn't play that, so he can keep quiet if he wants to. She's going to make sure that she is a part of the business, and that's how it should be. In the next scene, Mel and Tiffany, who is a new character that's being introduced in the show, but it turns out she is an old friend of Mel. She's known her for a little over 7 years, and they met through some business dealings and things like that. So she shows up for Mel, and they talk a little bit about the divorce and everything like that. Mel says that she is right now enjoying being in love with herself, and Tiffany says she understands what that is. Melody mentions, well, you were a divorcee, you recently remarried. And she was like, how are things going for you? And she was like, you know what? Everything's going great. I got my little mini-me, and I couldn't be happier. She mentions that she married a man who's super chocolate, and she is excited and happy every day for what she's now living. And Melody said, you give me hope. So I'm happy to have a friend who's gone through what I've gone through on the same level, basically. It sounds like Tiffany didn't have that great of a divorce, or when things went sour with her first marriage, things may have gone really sour. So they talk a little bit more, and they agree to do some future business dealings that involve Tiffany helping her find, I think she said, an intern. And then Melody suggests, hey, Tiffany, there's a party that I'm going to be going to for Destiny, a really good friend of mine. And she said, do you know Destiny? And she said, no, I don't know Destiny, which is interesting because she makes some comments at that meeting that suggests she knew something about Destiny. At the very minimum, she knows her husband, LeBerick, or ex-husband LeBerick, I should say. But she says she doesn't know Destiny, and she was like, you guys have a lot in common. I think you would really, hit it off. So why don't you be a guest of mine at Destiny's party? And that's how that resolved itself there. The next scene, we see Martell and Chris. Chris is an old friend of Martell and Melody. Chris and his wife used to actually counsel Melody, do couples counseling. They had gone through some things, and they was trying really hard to keep Melody and Martell together. But that went completely left. They had a meeting last season at his house, at Chris's house, where Melody threw a whole pitcher of lemonade at Martell's head. And so it's safe to say that, we saw what happened after that. They divorced, clearly. But Martell shows up to his good friend Chris's house, and Chris doesn't waste any time. He tells him that, looks like everything's moving forward, full steam ahead with the 47 acres. The new developer is willing to buy. Martell Holt says, great, that is a chapter that is closed. I can move on to the next. And then Chris says, well, the developer is actually interested in working with Melody. And that took the wind out of Martell's sails, literally. He's like, I beg your pardon? And he's like, yeah, she's, they know that she has a developer's license. I believe it was a developer's license, and they would like for her to help on the project. And he was like, well, why didn't you bring this to me first? I have somebody that I've already partnered with that has that same license, and they can do exactly what they're looking for. And he was like, well, they asked specifically for Melody, so that's why I'm bringing it to you. Melody asked me to talk to you about it, so that's why I'm bringing it to your attention. And Martell was heated, and he's let him know about it. Listen, you shouldn't be talking to Melody about anything that had to do with the 47 acres. You're my friend. I brought you this project. I brought you the developer to sell the 47 acres too. Why are you discussing this with him? Why aren't you bringing me back into the fold? You know where I am now. Like, I would really like to be back in the game. He basically said he thought Chris was unloyal. Chris was making all kinds of faces like, what? Huh? What? Because Chris knows who Martell is through and through. Like, you messed this up for yourself, so he doesn't feel bad. That developer, for whatever reason, knows Melody's side of the story, and he wants to partner with Melody. You have shown yourself to be untrustworthy, so he doesn't want you to be a part of the deal. That's truly what it is. But Martell wanted Chris to put in a good word for him so that he can get back in this real estate game. And it didn't happen. And he was pretty upset about it. And I understand why, for good reason, but we'll see. So the next section is Martell and Melody. They are meeting with Miss Price. That's her name, not Miss Person, Miss Price. They're meeting Miss Price for their co-parenting session, counseling session. Marcel basically says he hopes that this is somebody he can relate to, because the last counselor that he was seeing personally, he didn't like him very much because he had a hard time sharing things about himself that Martell could actually relate to. And Melody was like, you mean like what Chris and his wife were doing for us, relating their personal problems to what we were going through? And he was like, yeah. And she was like, did that work for you? And he was like, yeah. And she went, oh, okay. I mean, we're divorced, fool. Like, honestly, if you related to that, either way, clearly you don't relate to nothing, because it didn't stop you from doing what you did. But they go in, they talk to Miss Price. Miss Price seems really, she's a good counselor. She sits back. She clearly was unbiased. She did not butt into anything. She let them play out their interaction with each other so she can see exactly what kind of dynamic they have. Martell talked a little bit about how he was not in the best place financially. Melody basically started the conversation with, he doesn't see the kids as often as he should. He's missing his, dates to move forward with them and things like that. And Martell said, I don't have the money to do the things we used to do. So that stops me from meeting with the kids or taking on those dates. And Melody got choked up. She started crying because she knew that he is hurting financially, I guess, and that may be the reason. She understands that she want to keep the kids happy. Martell really tried hard not to cry, and I don't think he actually did, but he was pretty choked up, and he didn't need anything extra. Whatever he was running through his mind to stop himself from crying, he did. He just stopped talking and let that play out in his head. But when he came back, he left for some tissue for mail, actually. When he came back to the table, he finishes what he's trying to say. He stops talking to stop himself from crying. And then Melody started rubbing his shoulder like, it's okay. And he lost his mind. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And he was very conscious of the camera. He kept looking at the camera. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And she just backed off. He went, stop it, don't do that again. And she knew what that meant. Like, she's known this man for a long time, so she knew why he was doing what he was doing. But the counselor's like, does it upset you when she tries to be an emotional support for you? And he said, yes, it does upset me. And she was like, okay. She said it out loud. She needed you to hear it. She's trying to support you and you're not listening. And then Melody said, I get it. This man has seen me under a blanket, crying in the closet, hiding from everyone because of the things I was going through, the pain I was feeling. So I understand what he's going through, and I hurt for him too. And she was like, however, he can't, fall. He can't decide to leave it all behind because he has 5 children now. And he literally, you saw him leave his body almost. He was like, why did you say that? She was like, what? We're talking about offers. She was like, but you have 5. You have 5 now. And that brought him back to his normal narcissistic self, because he was like, we're talking about the 4 we have. We're not talking about anyone else. And he, goes back into his normal Martell Holt self. But they, finished the conversation with him just saying, he's hoping that he can get himself into a better place, but he loves all his children. He's going to do for all of his children the same. He's going to take care of all of his children the same. He just needs to, get his break and get back on his feet. He said that when Melody was going through her things, she still had him to support her financially. Now that they're divorced, he has no one to fall back on. But they get outside, and he says that he thought it was a great counseling session, and he's looking forward to the next one. And Melody just brings up, hey, how did things go? I'm happy that you liked it and everything. It kind of felt like, I guess the times we were going back and forth with Chris. And he says, yeah, speaking of Chris, he told me what happened, and it kind of felt like you had my back when you told him to talk to me first before you accepted the deal. And she was like, don't get it twisted. I am still considering moving forward with that development deal. And he lost his mess again. He was like, listen, this was my baby. Had nothing to do with you. And by the way, you've never built a house. And she was like, if I haven't built a house, like she said, I built houses, Martell Hope, but if I've never built a house, neither have you, because I've never seen you lay a brick or, put up a board or any of that. And he's walking away. He was like, peace, Melody. I cannot with you. This is my project, and I cannot believe that you're still considering it. And she gave him the deuces. They got in a truck, and they rode off. It was a great show. I cannot wait to see. So far, typically things can get a little slow when they start the season, but we are starting right where we left off. So, episode 3 should be great. Either way, I hope you guys come back next week and discuss episode 3. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share all of that good stuff. And I will see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.